happy, but at the very least willing to acquiesce to their requests, they would lend their firepower to the assault, and they would not require much time at all to get ready. Their plans for the assault had been laid down years ago by Supreme Grandmaster Azrael. The less than entirely successful intervention of the Dark Angels previously in the campaign had left a sour taste in the Supreme Grandmaster's mouth, and this attack was originally to be executed by the Dark Angels, but due to them being busy in other areas of the galaxy, they had entrusted this task to the Angels of Absolution. The Dark Angels rarely trust anyone else with their plans or agenda, but the Angels of Absolution were a bit of a unique case. They were one of very few forces within the Imperium that had the Dark Angels' complete and utter trust and confidence. On the downside, this meant that their plans did not really take into consideration what any other Imperial forces might be doing at the time. And so the Lord Inquisitor was put in a rather unusual situation, where he would have to adapt to the plans of others. The first phase of the Angels' plan was for a drop pod assault directly into the large courtyard at the heart of the Citadel. This would be presaged by an orbital bombardment by the battle barge Liberatori Delictum, after which Deathstorm drop pods would be dropped directly down into the courtyard, swiftly followed by yet further drop pods containing the Angels of Absolution. Once this force was down, they would head towards the Cardinal Gate, seize it, secure it, and then open it up for an Angels of Absolution armored spearhead heading towards it. Then, together, they would scour the inside of the Citadel, defeating any and all resistance, whilst also being on the lookout for Alpha Legion personnel. Honestly, it was a remarkably overconfident plan, bearing in mind it was intended to be carried out once the siege was in its very final moments, but nevertheless still assuming that the Cardinal Gate would be in enemy hands. I think if the Angels of Absolution had attempted this, whilst the Citadel was still unbreached, they would probably have been slaughtered to the last man, considering the capabilities of the defenders. But luckily for them, the seizing of the Cardinal Gate was no longer necessary, since the Inquisitorial Strike Force had taken command of it after defeating the demonic counterattack. And hell, it might even be tempting to let the Angels of Absolution have a go at the Citadel unaided, just so that they could experience the very same lesson that every other field commander on Vrax had so painfully learned. But luckily for them, Lord Inquisitor Rex was not quite that much of a sadist. Or possibly he was just starting to run out of time himself. Who knows? Nevertheless, after having had a look at the plan, he informed the Angels' Absolution that seizing the gate was no longer necessary. He could guarantee their strike force free passage through it, allowing them to change their objectives slightly. Now the Deep Strike Force would simply hammer down into the courtyard and then expand upon their immediate gains, securing entrance into the Basilica of St. Leonis, whilst their armored strike force would be able to simply pass through the gate immediately and meet up with the forward elements. Taking further advantage of this plan, the Lord Inquisitor was making sure that he had his own moves ready. First and foremost, the engineer companies, pioneered by Marshal Arnim Kagori, had been working hard throughout the siege of the Citadel, attempting to break into the Undercroft. But due to the enemy's constant and at this point quite expert counter-mining operations, they had been unable to gain much ground. But now, finally, they stood ready to break into the Undercrofts, and every single engineer company on Vrax had been redirected and ready to break in. The enemy would be assaulted from above as well as below. And the Angels of Absolution were not the only Astarte strike force that would be making their presence felt. The Red Scorpions would also advance upon the St. Leonis Basilica from their own positions in the St. Leonis Gate. The Red Scorpions had been much reduced after seizing